All right, so today we're diving into the pretty incredible life of a psychologist who basically took all the broken pieces of himself and, through some really intense suffering, managed to forge them into something whole, something powerful, and it became his way to heal other people. This isn't a story about turning lead into gold, it's about turning pain into purpose.
You know, this one sentence, said to a young Brian Lippincott by his mentor, it pretty much became the key that unlocked his entire life's work. It's a heavy idea, right? That real insight into the human mind doesn't just come from books or lectures, but from staring your own pain right in the face.
So that's the big question for us today. How does that even happen? We're going to follow this journey and try to figure out how the absolute chaos of one life can become the blueprint for a philosophy that helps heal so many others. But before we get into the chaos, let's look at the after picture. This is the guy he became, the accomplished, integrated professional Dr. Lippincott. I mean, look at this resume. On paper, he is a man who seems to have it all figured out. He's a psychologist, a professor, an author, a man who wears a lot of hats.
And this right here shows the kind of order he was able to create. His signature work, the family flow model, is this really brilliant, structured theory that helps families find balance. It's the work of a really thoughtful, mature mind. But, and this is the crazy part, the guy who made this beautifully ordered model, his life started in total, absolute internal chaos.
And here's where it all begins. We're jumping from the polished academic right back into a raw childhood memory. This quote, wow, it just reveals this deep, deep well of loneliness in a little boy who saw himself in Tarzan, feeling abandoned and alone in his own kind of jungle. This feeling, this is the seed for everything that comes after.
So, to get through this internal jungle, what does he do? He does what a lot of us do, actually. He builds masks, these personas. In Jungian psychology, you'd call them archetypes, these universal patterns that help us make sense of things. But for young Lippincott, these weren't just kids' games, no way. They were survival tools, psychic structures that helped him deal with a world that felt way too overwhelming.
Okay, so first up, you've got Tarzan. He called him the white skin. This was his raw, instinctual feeling self. But all that raw emotion, it can feel dangerous, right? So to protect Tarzan, another character had to emerge, James Bond, the cool, detached, rational spy. Bond's whole job was to hide the wild emotional swings of Tarzan, to continue the lie and keep that inner world top secret. It was literally a war between feeling and thinking. If you want to get technical, it's a classic conflict between extroverted feeling, connecting with people emotionally, and extroverted thinking, which is all about logic and order.
And just to complete the picture, there was a third guy in the mix, the Cowboy. This was the tough outer shell, the mask he learned to wear in the rough and tumble world of high school football. So there you have it, the completely fragmented self, the feeling ape man, the thinking spy, and the performing cowboy. So how on earth do these parts ever become one whole person? Well, tragically, the answer is through fire.
And this brings us to the central wound of his life. The event that didn't just crack those personas, it absolutely shattered them. He and his wife Linda, they built this whole life together. And then a brain tumor takes her away. And he's left with their 3 teenage kids in this huge, formless void. The ape, the spy, the cowboy, none of them had a clue what to do with that. They were useless.
I mean, how do you even start to make sense of a void like that?
Well, Lippincott started to find a framework, not in some clean academic theory, but in the raw, unfiltered mess of human suffering. A young client of his, Tamar, who was dealing with so much shame and judgment, just laid it out this bluntly. And believe it or not, in those words, he found a really strange kind of hope.
He recognized what she was describing. It was an old alchemical stage called Citrinitas, or the yellowing. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the part of the process where things rot, they decay, and they stink. But here's the kicker. In alchemy, that foul smell isn't just a sign of decay. It's the sign that a deep, profound transformation is happening. The shit is literally on its way to becoming gold.
His professor at the time, the legendary James Hillman, put it just like this. That feeling of, my life stinks, my job stinks, I stink, that stench is the change. That feeling of rot is actually a kind of awareness popping up.
And Lippincott experienced this in a story that's just, well, it's too good. So after a particularly, let's say, sulfurous lunch with Hillman, he's back in the small seminar room, and then let's call it a gaseous anomaly, escapes, loudly. And without skipping a single beat, Hillman just looks at the class and quips, Oh, I see the yellowing has begun. I mean, come on. It's a perfect, if maybe slightly mortifying, example of theory crashing right into reality.
So, okay, if the yellowing is the part where everything breaks down, what's the blueprint for building it all back up? For that, he turned to Carl Jung's biggest idea, individuation. It's this lifelong journey of becoming who you were always meant to be. And it's not about being perfect, not at all. It's about being whole, about finally integrating all those separate parts, the ape and the spy, into one cohesive self.
This right here, this is basically the roadmap out of the jungle. You start with fragmentation, all these warring parts inside you. Then suffering hits. It acts like a catalyst, just smashing those old structures. But that opens up a space for integration, the really hard, conscious work of putting the pieces back together. And if you do that work, something totally new emerges. Your authentic self, with a capital S, a whole that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts.
And this personal journey of putting himself back together, it led him to this incredibly profound purpose. He took what's known as the Bodhisattva vow, which is basically a promise not just to heal himself, but to use his own firsthand knowledge of that emptiness to help anyone else who's lost in it.
And this is it. This is the final alchemical step. The profound emptiness that almost broke him became his single most powerful tool as a therapist. Because he had been there, because he knew exactly what that kind of suffering felt like, he could build a bridge to other people who were in their own dark place. His wound became his gift.
In the end, it's his own poetry that says it best. In just a handful of words, he describes this incredible synthesis of his old warring personas, integrating ape to spy. See, it's not a battle anymore. It's a transcendence. It's creating something totally new from that old conflict.
And the whole point of this integration, it isn't just about finding personal peace. The goal becomes so much bigger. Once his parts are finally working together as a whole, he can turn his focus outward to help the earth swing on a branch of love. The healing is no longer just about him, it's for everyone.
And this final line just distills his entire life's philosophy into this simple, beautiful mantra: following flow, integrating the ape. It's a process, not a destination, right? It's this constant, conscious choice to embrace and bring in those wild, primal parts of ourselves instead of trying to fight them or hide them away.
So, we're going to end by turning all this wisdom back to you. Dr. Lippincott's story, it's not really just about him. It's proof of this idea that our deepest wounds can actually become our greatest strengths. It asks us not if we're going to suffer, because we all will, but how are we going to choose to integrate that suffering, and how might our own scars become the very thing that allows us to connect with and heal others?